They said the silence in the room was loud enough to break glass. It was a Tuesday night at the Gilded Cage, the most exclusive underground club in downtown Chicago. The man sitting at table 9 wasn't just a patron, he was Adrian Volkov, the head of the Bratva's Western Syndicate, a man who hadn't spoken a word in public for 3 years. But that night, he waved over a trembling waitress, looked her dead in the eye, and asked a single simple question. No one expected her to answer. Definitely no one expected her answer to make Adrian Volkov stand up and drop his gun on the table. This is the story of the waitress who knew too much, and the night everything changed. The air inside the Gilded Cage always smelled of expensive perfume, Cuban tobacco, and fear. Located in the basement of a nondescript textile factory in the meatpacking district, it was the kind of place you didn't just walk into, you were invited, or you were dragged in. For Maya Lin, it was neither. She was invisible, just another waitress in a black vest and white shirt, balancing a tray of crystal flutes. "Don't look at them," the floor manager, a sweaty man named Carl, had hissed at her earlier that evening. "Table 9, the VIPs. You drop a drink, you don't just lose your job, Maya. You disappear. Do you understand?" Maya had nodded, gripping the tray until her knuckles turned white. She needed this job. Her mother's medical bills at St. Jude's were piling up, and the tips at the Gilded Cage were the only thing keeping the lights on in their cramped apartment in Pilsen. The music was a low, thumping bass that rattled the silverware. The room was filled with men in Italian suits and women in dresses that cost more than Maya would make in a decade. But the energy shifted the moment the heavy iron doors swung open at midnight. The music didn't stop, but the conversation did. Walking in was a phalanx of 6 men, moving in a diamond formation. In the center was Adrian Volkov. He was terrifyingly handsome, in the way a storm is beautiful before it tears your house apart. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone, to reveal a glimpse of a tattoo that crawled up his neck, a double-headed eagle. He was the ghost of Chicago. The police had files on him thick enough to use as doorstops, but nothing ever stuck. Witnesses vanished, evidence burned. He sat at table 9. The other men stood around him, facing outward, scanning the room like sharks. "Service," one of the guards grunted, snapping his fingers in Maya's direction. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. She smoothed her skirt and walked over. She could feel the eyes of every other guest on her back. They were waiting for a show. They were waiting to see if the new girl would crack. She reached the table. "Good evening, gentlemen. What can I get for you?" Adrian Volkov didn't look up. He was inspecting the tablecloth, running a thumb over the fabric. "Vodka. Neat. The bottle stays." His voice was like gravel grinding together. Maya nodded and turned to leave, but his hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. It wasn't painful, but it was an iron grip. He stopped her cold. The room went dead silent. The DJ actually cut the volume. Adrian slowly looked up. His eyes were a startling icy blue, creating a jarring contrast with his dark hair. He stared at her, scanning her face, searching for something. He looked at her not like a man looking at a woman, but like a jeweler inspecting a diamond for a flaw. "You," Adrian said softly. "Sir?" Maya stammered. "I have a simple question for you," Adrian said, his voice carrying through the silent club. The guards shifted. They looked nervous. Adrian never spoke to the help. "If a house is burning down," Adrian asked, his eyes never leaving hers, "and inside is a chest of gold and a sleeping dog, which one do you save?" It sounded like a riddle, a joke, some rich guy messing with the help. A few guests at nearby tables chuckled nervously, but Maya didn't laugh. She went pale, her tray trembled. She looked down at Adrian, her brown eyes widening in recognition, not of him, but of the code. She leaned in, ignoring the guards who stepped forward to stop her, and whispered loud enough for the table to hear, You don't save the gold, and you don't save the dog, Maya said, her voice shaking but clear. You save the match that started the fire. The gasp in the room was audible. Adrian Volkov's eyes widened. He released her wrist. He stood up slowly, towering over her. He reached into his jacket. The guards reached for their holsters. The guests screamed silently, expecting a hit. Instead, Adrian pulled out a heavy silver lighter and a napkin. He placed his handgun on the table, a gesture of absolute vulnerability, and held the lighter out to her. Then burn it down, he whispered. He turned to his head of security. Clear the room, everyone out, now, except her. The chaos that followed was controlled but frantic. Guests scrambled for the exits, dropping clutches and spilling drinks. Within 3 minutes, the gilded cage was empty, save for Adrian, his 6 guards, and Maya, who was still standing by table 9, clutching her empty tray against her chest like a shield. Carl, the manager, was being physically dragged out by the back door, screaming, "She's just a temp! I don't know her!" Adrian gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Maya sat. "Where did you hear that phrase?" Adrian asked. He poured 2 glasses of vodka from the bottle that had appeared. He slid one to her. "My father," Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. "He used to say it before he left." "Your father," Adrian repeated, swirling the clear liquid. "What was his name?" "David Lynn. He was an accountant." Adrian laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. An accountant. "Is that what he told you?" "David Lynn didn't balance books, Maya. He balanced power." Adrian leaned forward. 10 years ago, there was a summit. The Night of Long Knives in New York. The Volkov family, my family, was betrayed. Someone sold our coordinates to the feds and the Irish mob simultaneously. My father was killed that night. My brother was put in a wheelchair. The man who orchestrated the betrayal vanished. We called him the architect. Maya felt the room spinning. "I don't know what you're talking about. My dad died in a car accident in Ohio." "Did he?" Adrian pulled a folded photograph from his inner pocket and slid it across the table. It was a grainy surveillance photo. It showed a man getting into a black sedan. He looked younger, sharper, but it was undeniably her father. Standing next to him was a teenage boy with a black eye. "That's me," Adrian said, pointing to the boy. "And that's your father. He wasn't an accountant. He was the consigliere to the Volkov family. He was the only man my father trusted, and he's the one who sold us out." Maya pushed the photo away. "You're lying. Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Adrian said, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. "The architect stole something from us when he ran. A ledger, a digital key containing the accounts of every crime family on the eastern seaboard. We've been hunting him for a decade. We found nothing. Until tonight." He looked at the necklace hanging around Maya's neck. It was a cheap silver locket she wore every day. "That phrase," Adrian said, "save the match. It was the passphrase for the vault. Only 3 people knew it. My father, who's dead, your father, who's missing, and me." He pointed a finger at her. "You are the loose end, Maya." Maya stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'm leaving." "You can't leave," Adrian said calmly, "because the men standing outside that door aren't just my men. Look at the camera feed." He turned a small tablet toward her. It showed the alleyway behind the club. Black SUVs had blocked the exit. Men with assault rifles were swarming the perimeter. But they weren't wearing the Volkov crest. They were wearing red armbands. "The Irish," Adrian cursed. "They must have been tracking you. They know who you are." "Tracking me? I'm a waitress," Maya cried, tears finally spilling over. "You're not a waitress." Adrian stood up, buttoning his jacket. He grabbed his gun off the table and checked the chamber. "You're the key to billions of dollars, and right now, you're the most hunted woman in America." He extended his hand to her. This time, it wasn't aggressive. It was an offer. "You have 2 choices, Maya. You walk out that door alone, and the O'Malley Syndicate tortures you for a password you don't know you have. Or you come with me. You trust the monster." There was a loud crash from the front entrance. Gunfire erupted upstairs. The Irish were breaching the club. Maya looked at the door, then at Adrian's hand. She thought of her mother in the hospital. She thought of the car accident that had killed her father. Was it a lie? The glass of the VIP section shattered as a bullet whizzed past, embedding itself in the wall inches from Maya's head. Adrian didn't flinch. He just kept his hand out. Tick-tock, little matchstick. Maya took his hand. "Good girl," Adrian gritted out. He pulled her into his chest, shielding her body with his, and raised his gun. "Don't let go." The exit from the gilded cage was a blur of violence and neon lights. Maya didn't remember her feet touching the ground. One moment she was standing by the table, the next she was being shoved into the back seat of a matte black armored SUV. Adrian Volkov slid into the driver's seat, bypassing his driver. He threw the car into reverse, the tires screaming against the asphalt as bullets pinged off the reinforced glass like hail. "Head down," Adrian roared. Maya curled into a ball on the leather floorboards, her hands over her ears. The SUV spun 180 degrees, the rear bumper clipping a dumpster, before Adrian slammed on the gas. The engine growled, a deep, guttural sound that vibrated through Maya's ribs. They tore through the meatpacking district, blowing through red lights. Maya risked a glance up. In the rearview mirror, she saw 2 motorcycles weaving through traffic, closing the distance. "They're following us," she screamed. "Not for long," Adrian said, his face a mask of terrifying concentration. He took a sharp right turn onto a bridge ramp, swerving across 3 lanes. As the motorcycles tried to follow, Adrian tapped the brakes, hard. The lead bike couldn't react in time. It clipped the SUV's bumper and sent the rider skidding into the concrete barrier. The second biker peeled off, abandoning the chase. Adrian didn't smile. He didn't relax. He just checked the mirrors and merged onto the highway, blending into the flow of late-night traffic. 20 minutes of silence passed before they pulled into the underground garage of a sleek, glass-paneled high-rise on the north side. This wasn't a hideout. It was a fortress disguised as luxury. "Get out," Adrian commanded. They took a private elevator to the penthouse. When the doors opened, Maya gasped. The apartment was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. It was stark, decorated in greys and blacks, cold and impersonal. It looked like no one lived there. "Don't touch the windows," Adrian said, throwing his keys on a marble island. "They're bulletproof, but I don't want fingerprints." Maya stood in the center of the room, shivering. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep chill. "You killed those men back there, the guards." "They were trying to kill you," Adrian said, walking to a wet bar and pouring himself a drink. He didn't offer her one this time. "I saved your life. You're welcome." "You kidnapped me," Maya snapped, her fear turning into anger. "My mum is in St. Jude's. She needs me. I have a shift tomorrow. I have a life." Adrian turned, glass in hand. He walked toward her slowly. "You had a life, Maya. Past tense. As of 12 a.m. tonight. Maya Lynn, the waitress, doesn't exist. If you go back to that hospital, the O'Malleys will use your mother to get to you. Is that what you want? You want them to unplug her life support just to make you talk?" The cruelty of his words slapped her harder than a physical blow. Maya sank onto a white leather sofa, burying her face in her hands. She knew he was right. That was the worst part. "Let me see the locket," Adrian said. His voice was softer now, though still commanding. Maya hesitated, then unclasped the silver chain. She handed it to him. Adrian took it under the light of a floor lamp. It was a cheap thing, tarnished silver in the shape of a heart. He didn't try to open it. Instead, he pulled a small pocket knife from his belt and jammed the tip into the seam of the heart, twisting it violently. "Hey!" Maya cried out. The silver casing popped off. It wasn't solid silver. Under the cheap metal shell was a thin, black ceramic disc with gold contact points. It's not a locket, Adrian murmured, holding it up to the light. It's a biometric storage drive. Military grade. Soviet tech. He looked at Maya, his blue eyes piercing. You've been wearing the most dangerous object in the underworld around your neck since you were a child. Did you never wonder why it was so heavy? My dad gave it to me, Maya whispered. He said it was to keep my heart safe. He was literal, Adrian said. He tossed the chip onto the coffee table. We can't open it. Not here. I need a specialist. Until then, you stay in this apartment. The elevators are coded to my prints. The stairs are alarmed. You are a prisoner here, Maya, for your own safety. He turned to walk down the hall towards the bedrooms. Where are you going? She asked, panic rising again. To shower. I smell like gunpowder and cheap vodka. He paused at the door. There are clothes in the guest room. Change. You look like a waitress. If you're going to survive in my world, you need to stop looking like a victim. The next morning, the sun over Lake Michigan was blindingly bright, a stark contrast to the dark mood inside the penthouse. Maya hadn't slept. She had spent the night sitting by the window, watching the tiny cars move below, wondering which one contained men coming to kill her. She had changed into the clothes Adrian had mentioned, a pair of black silk cargo pants and a fitted cashmere sweater that probably cost more than her mother's car. They fit perfectly. Too perfectly. It made her wonder who had been here before her. Adrian emerged from his room at 8 a.m., dressed in a fresh suit, looking as if he hadn't just been in a shootout 12 hours prior. He was on the phone. Bring him up. I don't care if he's hungover. Drag him. He hung up and looked at Maya. Coffee is in the kitchen. Don't drink it all. 10 minutes later, the elevator dinged. 2 of Adrian's guards dragged a man into the room. The man was short, wearing frantic mismatched socks and a hoodie that read, I paused my game to be here. He had thick glasses and looked terrified. Felix? Adrian greeted him. Mr. Volkov, Felix squeaked, adjusting his glasses. I swear I didn't know the server was unsecured. It was a routing error. Relax, Felix. I'm not here to kill you for your incompetence. Not today. Adrian pointed to the coffee table. I need you to crack that. Felix looked at the black ceramic disc. His eyes went wide. Is that a Voronoi drive? I thought these were myths. KGB Cold War stuff. Can you open it? I can try. But these things are booby-trapped. One wrong password attempt and the data acid washes itself. It melts. Adrian looked at Maya. That's where she comes in. Felix set up a portable rig, 3 laptops and a tangle of cables on the pristine coffee table. Maya watched, fascinated and terrified. Okay, Felix typed furiously. It's prompting for a biometric key first. Fingerprint. Adrian nodded to Maya. She stepped forward. Felix grabbed her hand, trembling, and pressed her thumb against a small sensor pad he had wired to the chip. A green light on the screen blinked. Access granted. Okay, step 1 cleared, Felix muttered. Now the passphrase. The alphanumeric. Key. Save the match, Adrian said. Felix typed it in. Access denied. The screen flashed red. A countdown timer appeared. 0:59. Wrong, Felix screamed. It's the wrong phrase. We have 50 seconds before it fries. That's the phrase. Adrian roared, slamming his hand on the table. That's what she said at the club. It was the recognition phrase, Maya realized, her voice rising. Not the password. The phrase just identifies the carrier. 40 seconds, Felix yelled. Give me something, a date, a name. Try my birthday, Maya shouted. October 14th, 1998, Felix typed. Access denied. 0:30. Try your father's name, Adrian barked. David Lynn. Access denied. 0:20. Think, Maya. Adrian grabbed her shoulders, shaking her hard. What did he tell you? What was the last thing he said to you before he disappeared? Maya's mind raced. The memory of her father was fading, 10 years of dust covering it. She remembered the rain, the car. He had hugged her. He had whispered something in her ear, something she had always thought was just a lullaby. 10 seconds. He said. Maya closed her eyes. He said, "The wolf loves the moon." "Type it," Adrian commanded. "Latin?" Felix asked. "No, English. Just type it." Felix's fingers flew. "The wolf loves the moon." Enter. The timer stopped at 0:02. The screen turned blue. Rows of data began to scroll down the monitors at lightning speed. Bank accounts, routed numbers, senator names, judges, hits ordered. It was the ledger, the architect's insurance policy. "My God," Felix whispered. This is everything. This is the entire underworld economy of Chicago for the last 20 years. Adrian leaned in, his eyes scanning the data. "Search for Volkov." Felix did. A file opened. It was a transfer order. Adrian's face went pale. "This isn't just a ledger," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "It's a diary." He pointed to an entry dated 10 years ago. Target, Volkov Summit. Authorized by the architect. Payment received from son. The Volkov estate. Adrian froze. Maya leaned in to read the screen. "Payment from the Volkov estate?" Maya asked. "That means—" "It means my father wasn't betrayed by your father," Adrian said, stepping back, looking like he had seen a ghost. "It means my father was betrayed by someone inside our own family. Someone who paid your father to take the fall and disappear." "Who?" Maya asked. Adrian looked at her, and for the first time he looked truly afraid. "My brother," he whispered. "Dmitri." The realization hung in the air like smoke. Adrian's brother, the one in the wheelchair, the one Adrian had protected his whole life. He was the architect, or he was working with him. Suddenly, a high-pitched alarm began to blare from Felix's laptop. "Uh-oh," Felix said. "What did you do?" Adrian snapped, his gun instantly in his hand. "I didn't do anything. The drive. It has a phone home feature. As soon as we unlocked it, it sent a GPS signal." "To who?" "To everyone," Felix said, closing his laptop. "The signal is broadcasting on an open frequency. Every hitman, every Fed, and every rival family within 100 miles just got a ping with our exact coordinates." Adrian grabbed Maya's arm. "We have to move. Now." "Where?" Maya cried as he dragged her toward the door. "If they know we're here, where can we go?" Adrian kicked the door open. He looked at her, his eyes burning with a new, dark resolve. "We go to the one place my brother won't look," Adrian said. "We're going to the lion's den. We're going to my family's estate." As they ran towards the elevator, the sound of a helicopter rotor began to thump rhythmically against the glass windows of the penthouse. They were already here. The helicopter, hovering outside the penthouse, wasn't a news chopper. A side door slid open, revealing a man with a mounted heavy machine gun. "Corridor!" Adrian yelled, tackling Maya into the hallway just as the glass windows of the living room exploded inward. Thousands of shards rained down like diamonds, followed immediately by the deafening thud-thud-thud of heavy rounds tearing apart the luxury furniture. "Felix, can you wipe the drive?" Adrian screamed over the noise. "I can't. I need a magnet," Felix shrieked, crawling on his belly, clutching his laptop. "Leave it!" Adrian grabbed Maya by the collar of her sweater and hauled her up. "Stairs, now!" They sprinted down 30 flights of concrete fire stairs, the sound of boots clanging above them. They were being hunted from the top down. When they burst into the parking garage, Adrian didn't go for the SUV. He led them to a dusty, tarp-covered shape in the corner. He ripped the cover off to reveal a vintage 1969 Mustang, black on black. "A classic!" Maya panted, her lungs burning. "Now! It has no GPS, no onboard computer. It can't be tracked," Adrian said, firing the engine. It roared to life with a raw, mechanical fury. They peeled out of the garage just as a black van screeched to a halt at the exit. Adrian didn't brake. He rammed the Mustang into the side of the van, metal screeching against metal, spinning the heavier vehicle out of the way, and shot out onto the street. The drive to Barrington Hills was a blur of silence and speed. Maya stared out the window, her hands trembling. "You said we're going to your brother," she said quietly. "The one who betrayed you. Why?" Adrian's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles cracked, because in the Bratva, there is only one punishment for betrayal of blood. It has to be done face to face, and I need to look him in the eye when I ask him why. And if he tries to kill us, then I'll save him the trouble of a funeral. They arrived at the Volkov estate an hour later. It was a sprawling mansion, set behind 20-foot iron gates, surrounded by dense forest. It looked less like a home and more like a mausoleum. The guards at the gate hesitated when they saw Adrian. They raised their rifles, unsure. Technically, Adrian was still the boss of the Western Syndicate, but rumors travel fast. "Open the gate," Adrian barked through the window, "or I run it down." The gate swung open. They parked at the front steps. The house was silent. Too silent. Adrian checked his gun, then handed a smaller pistol, a backup piece from his ankle holster, to Maya. "Do you know how to use this?" "Point and shoot?" Maya asked, her voice small. "Safety off. Squeeze, don't pull. Don't hesitate." They entered the grand foyer. It was empty. The sound of their footsteps echoed on the marble floors. Adrian led her straight to the library, the heart of the house. He kicked the double oak doors open. Sitting by the fireplace, wrapped in a blanket in his wheelchair, was Dmitri Volkov. He looked frail, his face pale, staring into the flames. He didn't look like a criminal mastermind. He looked like a dying man. "Hello, brother," Dmitri said without turning around. "I was wondering when you'd get here. You always were the punctual one." Adrian walked into the room, gun drawn, but pointed at the floor. "The drive, Dmitri. We opened it." Dmitri chuckled. He turned his wheelchair slowly to face them. His eyes were the same icy blue as Adrian's, but they lacked the fire. They were dead eyes. "And I assume you found the transfer order, the payment to the accountant?" Dmitri asked. "You paid David Lynn to fake the evidence," Adrian said, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. "You set up our father to be killed by the Irish. You put yourself in that chair." "No," Dmitri corrected softly. "I didn't put myself in the chair. The Irish did that. That part was an unfortunate miscalculation. But yes, I sold out, father." "Why?" Adrian roared, the sound bouncing off the walls. "He loved you." "He was weak," Dmitri snapped, his frailty vanishing for a second. "He wanted peace treaties. He wanted to legitimize the business. He was going to turn the Volkov Empire into a shipping company. I did what had to be done to keep us feared, to keep us powerful." Dmitri looked at Maya. A cruel smile touched his lips. "And you brought the girl, the accountant's daughter. How poetic. She's not just the accountant's daughter." Adrian stepped in front of Maya. "She's the one who cracked your code. Is she?" Dmitri wheeled himself closer. "Did you tell her the truth yet, Adrian? Did you tell her why her father disappeared?" Maya stepped out from behind Adrian. "What is he talking about?" Adrian stiffened. "Don't listen to him. David Lynn didn't just run away," Dmitri sneered. "He didn't die in a car crash. He's alive, my dear. I've been keeping him in the basement of this very house for 10 years. He's my pet." Maya's world stopped. "He's here?" "He is," Dmitri nodded. "And if you want to see him alive, Adrian will put the gun down." "Isan." The air in the library became heavy, suffocating. Maya looked at Adrian. For the first time, the stone-faced killer looked unsure. "You're lying," Adrian said. "Am I?" Dmitri pressed a button on the arm of his wheelchair. A panel in the wall slid open, revealing a video feed. It showed a small, windowless concrete room. Sitting on a cot, reading a book, was an older man. His hair was grey, his face lined with age and sorrow. But it was him. It was David Lynn. "Dad!" Maya choked out, tears instantly blinding her. She moved towards the screen, but Adrian grabbed her arm. "It's a trap, Maya. I don't care," she screamed, ripping her arm away. She turned to Dmitri. "Let him go. Give me the drive." Dmitri extended a hand. "And I let you all walk away. You, your father, and my foolish brother. I take the empire. You take the freedom. Adrian looked at the USB drive in his pocket, the backup Felix had made before the apartment was destroyed. It contained the evidence to send Dimitri to prison for life, or to have the other families execute him for treason. Adrian, Maya pleaded, looking at him. Please, it's my dad. Adrian looked at Maya. The waitress who had served him vodka 24 hours ago was now asking him to trade his vengeance for her happiness. He looked at the gun in his hand. He looked at his brother. He slowly lowered the weapon. Let him go first, Adrian said. Dimitri smiled. Wise choice. He pressed another button on his chair. Bring the prisoner up. Moments later, a side door opened. 2 guards walked in, supporting a weak, stumbling David Lynn. Maya? David squinted against the library lights. When he saw her, his legs gave out. Maya! Dad! Maya ran to him. The guards let him go, and they collapsed into a hug in the center of the room. It was a moment of pure, raw emotion. Adrian watched, his heart twisting. He had lost his father because of Dimitri. But he could save hers. Now, Dimitri said, holding out his hand. The drive. Adrian reached into his pocket. He pulled out the small black chip. He walked toward Dimitri. You win, brother, Adrian said, placing the chip in Dimitri's hand. You always wanted the crown. It's yours. It's heavy, though. Hope your back can take it. Dimitri gripped the chip, his eyes gleaming with triumph. Get out of my house. Take the girl and the old man. If I see you in Chicago again, I kill you. Adrian turned to Maya and David. Let's go. They turned towards the exit. Click. The sound of a safety being disengaged echoed through the room. Adrian spun around. Dimitri was holding a gold-plated revolver, aimed directly at Adrian's back. You really thought I'd let you live? Dimitri laughed, a high, manic sound. You're the rightful heir, Adrian. As long as you breathe, my claim is weak. No! Maya screamed. She did something insane. She didn't run away. She didn't hide. She threw herself in front of Adrian, just as Dimitri pulled the trigger. Bang! The shot was deafening. Maya stumbled back, hitting Adrian's chest. Maya! Adrian caught her, his eyes wide with horror. He looked down. There was no blood on her. He looked up. Dimitri was still sitting in his wheelchair, the smoking gun in his hand. But he wasn't looking at them. He was looking down at his own chest. A red flower was blooming on his white shirt. Standing in the doorway behind Dimitri was Carl, the sweaty manager from the Gilded Cage. He was holding a silenced pistol, his hands shaking violently. I told you she was just a temp, Carl yelled hysterically. You weren't supposed to hurt the staff. That's against union rules. It was the most absurd, ridiculous thing anyone could have said. Dimitri slumped forward, coughing blood. The bullet had taken him in the lung. He looked at Adrian, his eyes wide with shock. You brought... The manager? I didn't bring him, Adrian said, bewildered. He must have followed us in the trunk. Dimitri laughed, a wet, gurgling sound. The gun fell from his hand. His head lolled back. The architect of the underworld, the man who betrayed his blood, dead because of a disgruntled middle manager. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of sirens. Not police sirens. The air raid sirens of the estate. Sir, one of Dimitri's guards ran into the room, ignoring the dead body of his boss. We have a problem. The Irish, they're here, and they brought a tank. Adrian looked at the monitor on the wall. The front gates were gone. An armored personnel carrier was rolling up the driveway, followed by 50 men with red armbands. Adrian looked at David Lynn, then at Maya, then at the terrified Carl. Grab the guns, Adrian said, his voice turning into the steel command of a general. Dimitri is dead. I am the Volkov Don now, and we are not dying in this house. He looked at Maya. Are you ready to burn it down? Maya wiped the tears from her face. She looked at her father, then at the man who had kidnapped her, saved her, and almost died for her. She picked up Dimitri's gold revolver from the floor. Save the match, she whispered. The library of the Volkov estate, once a sanctuary of silence and old paper, had become a tomb. The air was thick with the copper tang of blood and the acrid smell of drywall dust. Dmitri Volkov, the man who had pulled the strings of the Chicago underworld for a decade, sat slumped in his wheelchair, his eyes wide and unseeing, staring at a ceiling that was rapidly beginning to crack. The house shuddered violently. A second impact, heavier than the first, rocked the foundation. Outside, the mechanical roar of the Irish armored personnel carrier, an absolute monstrosity of urban warfare, reverberated through the stone walls. They weren't just knocking. They were bringing the walls down. Adrian stood over his brother's body, his chest heaving. He didn't look at the corpse. His icy blue eyes were locked on the 6 Volkov guards standing in a semicircle near the mahogany doors. These men had been paid by Dmitri. They had sworn loyalty to Dmitri. And now they held assault rifles, uncertain of who the enemy was, the Irish outside or the man standing before them who had just watched their boss die. The silence stretched, tighter than a piano wire. "You have a choice," Adrian said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the low rumble of the tank engine outside like a razor. He stepped forward, ignoring the rifles pointed vaguely in his direction. "The man who signed your paychecks is dead. The architect is gone." One of the guards, a scarred man named Silas, shifted his weight. "We have orders, Adrian. If Dmitri falls, the protocols say—" "To hell with the protocols!" Adrian roared, the sudden volume making Maya flinch. "Look around you. The men outside, the O'Malleys, they don't care about your protocols. They don't care that you were just following orders. They have a tank parked on the front lawn because they intend to turn this estate into a parking lot. They are here to erase the Volkov name from the history books. That includes me. That includes you, and it includes your families." Another boom shook the house, sending a shower of plaster dust raining down on the antique rug. The chandelier above swayed dangerously. Adrian walked right up to the barrel of Silas's gun, pushing it aside with his hand. "You can die for a corpse," Adrian hissed, gesturing to the wheelchair, "or you can fight for a king. If you stand with me, we survive this. If you hesitate, you burn. Decide. Now." Silas looked at the dead body of Dmitri, then at the monitor showing the swarm of red armbanded Irish soldiers breaching the outer perimeter. He looked at Adrian, the man who had walked into the lion's den with nothing but a waitress and a revolver. Silas racked the slide of his rifle. He turned to the door, putting his back to Adrian. "Orders, sir?" Adrian exhaled, the tension in his shoulders dropping an inch. He turned to Carl. The manager of the Gilded Cage was currently huddled under a heavy oak desk, clutching a stapler as if it were a grenade. "Carl!" Adrian barked. "I didn't do it," Carl squeaked. I did shoot him, but it was self-defense. Sort of." "Get up," Adrian commanded. "You're not a manager anymore. Today, you're a soldier. Take David to the panic room behind the east bookcase. It's reinforced steel, oxygen supply for 12 hours. Lock it from the inside and do not open it unless you hear my voice. Exactly my voice. Do you understand?" David Lynn stepped forward, his face pale but his jaw set. He grabbed Maya's hand. "Maya, come with us. It's safe in there." Maya looked at her father. She saw the fear in his eyes. The fear of a man who had already lost 10 years of his life and couldn't bear to lose his daughter. Then she looked at Adrian. He was checking the magazine of a rifle he had taken from one of the guards. He looked alone. Even surrounded by these men, he looked like a man standing on the edge of a cliff. "No, Dad," Maya said softly. She squeezed his hand and let go. "I can't hide any more. Maya, go, Dad, please." She kissed his cheek and shoved him gently toward Carl. "Keep him safe, Carl, or I'll fire you." Carl nodded frantically, grabbing David's arm and dragging the protesting older man towards the hidden panel in the bookcase, as the heavy false wall clicked shut, sealing them away. The glass of the French doors in the hallway shattered. "They're inside," Silas shouted. "Breach in the east wing." "Secure the library doors," Adrian ordered the guards. "Hold this room at all costs. Give us time." Time for what? Maya asked, gripping the heavy gold revolver she had taken from Dmitri. It felt cold and alien in her hand, but her grip didn't waver. To change the board, Adrian said. He grabbed a tactical radio from Silas's vest and clipped it to his belt. Then he grabbed Maya's arm. We're going to the roof. The roof? Maya cried as he pulled her towards the servants' staircase in the corner. You want to go up? There's a tank outside. Being higher just makes us a better target. Trust me, Adrian said, kicking the door to the stairwell open. They sprinted up the narrow, winding stairs. The sounds of war erupted below them. The staccato rattle of automatic fire echoed through the ventilation shafts. The Volkov guards were engaging the Irish breach team. They reached the second-floor landing, and the door burst open before Adrian could reach it. 2 men in tactical gear with red armbands surged through. Adrian didn't hesitate. He drove the butt of his rifle into the face of the first man, a sickening crunch echoing in the tight space. The man crumbled. The second soldier raised his weapon, leveling it at Adrian's chest. Bang! The shot was deafening in the enclosed stairwell. Adrian flinched, expecting the impact. But the soldier dropped, a hole in his shoulder. Adrian spun around. Maya was standing on the step below him, the gold revolver smoking in her hands. Her eyes were wide, shocked, but her aim had been true. She hadn't hesitated. You okay? Adrian asked, his voice rough. I think I'm going to throw up, Maya whispered, but keep moving. Adrian looked at her with a fierce mixture of pride and terror. He nodded and turned back to the ascent. Don't throw up yet. We have 3 more flights. They burst out onto the roof of the Volkov estate, and the wind hit them like a physical blow. It was a cold, biting wind coming off Lake Michigan, whipping Maya's hair across her face. The scene below was a nightmare. From this vantage point, the hopelessness of their situation was undeniable. The driveway was a sea of red. At least 50 men were swarming the grounds, using the ornamental statues and hedges as cover. In the center of the driveway sat the APC, its turret slowly rotating, aiming at the front doors they had just left. But the real threat wasn't the foot soldiers. It was the man standing behind the APC, surrounded by a personal guard detail, Patrick O'Malley. He looked like a king surveying a conquered land. He was shouting into a radio, directing the slaughter with the casual arrogance of a man who knows he has already won. He's too far, Adrian cursed, looking through the scope of his rifle. 400 yards. With this crosswind, I'd miss 9 times out of 10. We can't fight them all, Adrian, Maya yelled over the wind and the gunfire below. Even if the guards hold the library, O'Malley will just level the house. We're trapped. Adrian moved to the edge of the parapet, scanning the grounds. He wasn't looking for an escape route. He was looking for a weakness. His eyes darted from the APC to the generator shed, then to the fuel depot near the garage. We don't need to kill them all, Adrian muttered, his mind racing. We just need to kill the snake's head. If O'Malley falls, the Irish scatter. They're mercenaries, not zealots. But you said he's out of range. For a bullet to the head? Yes. Adrian turned to look at her. Do you remember the question I asked you? In the club? Maya blinked, the memory flashing back. The silent club, the intense blue eyes. If a house is burning down. The gold and the dog, she said. And you said to save the match, Adrian said. You said the most dangerous thing in the fire isn't the treasure or the victim. It's the source. He pointed over the parapet, down towards the side of the estate, about 50 yards upwind from where O'Malley was standing. Look, Adrian commanded. Maya squinted. Nestled against the side of the guest house, hidden behind a trellis of ivy, was a massive, industrial-sized propane tank. It was white, cylindrical, and fed the heating lines for the entire estate. The tank? Maya asked. O'Malley is standing downwind, Adrian said, gauging the flags snapping on the roof. The wind is blowing directly from that tank towards the driveway. A straight line. If we shoot the tank, it blows up? Maya asked. No, Hollywood gets that wrong, Adrian said, shaking his head. If I shoot the tank, it just leaks gas. Liquid propane expands 270 times its volume when it hits the air. It creates a cloud, a heavy, invisible cloud of highly flammable gas. He looked at Maya, his eyes burning with intensity. I'm going to puncture the tank. The gas will flow toward O'Malley. He won't see it. He might smell it, but by then it will be too late. Too late for what? For the match. Adrian pointed to the revolver in Maya's hand. I need to use the rifle to rupture the valve. I need to sustain fire to keep the gas venting quickly. I can't switch targets. I need you to light it. Maya looked at the gun, then at the tank, then at the distant figure of O'Malley. You want me to shoot a cloud of gas? From here? You don't need to hit a man, Adrian said, gripping her shoulders. You just need to create a spark anywhere in that cloud. The muzzle flash from a .44 Magnum is big. If the gas concentration is right, the air itself will burn. And if I miss, then we die, Adrian said simply, and the Irish take the city. He didn't ask her if she was ready. He didn't ask if she was scared. He just looked at her as if she was his equal, as if she was the only person in the world who could do this. Maya took a deep breath. The freezing air burned her lungs. She stepped to the ledge and rested her elbows on the cold stone. She cocked the hammer of the gold revolver. Do it, she whispered. Adrian dropped to one knee. He braced the rifle against the parapet. He took a breath, held it, and fired. Crack! A spark flew off the white tank below. A hiss, audible even from this distance, erupted as the high-pressure valve was sheared off. Crack, crack, crack. Adrian fired 3 more times, widening the hole. A jet of white vapor spewed out, instantly vanishing into the air, but the shimmering distortion of the gas was visible. It rolled across the grass like a ghostly tide, caught by the heavy wind, tumbling rapidly towards the driveway. Down below, Patrick O'Malley paused. He stopped shouting. He looked around, sniffing the air. He frowned. The soldiers around him looked confused. The smell of rotten eggs, the additive in propane, was washing over them. Gas! O'Malley screamed, his eyes widening as he realized the trap. Fall back! Don't shoot! Do not shoot! If any of his men fired a gun, they would incinerate themselves. They're moving! Adrian yelled. Maya, now! Maya stared at the distortion in the air. It was invisible, a phantom target. She had to trust the physics. She had to trust Adrian. She had to trust herself. Save the match. She squeezed the trigger. Boom! The revolver kicked back hard, hurting her wrist. For a split second, nothing happened. Then the world turned orange. It wasn't a normal explosion. It was a thermobaric event. The air above the driveway ignited in a catastrophic whoosh. A wall of fire, 50 feet high and 100 feet wide, rolled over the Irish position like a tsunami of hellfire. The shockwave hit the roof a second later, knocking Maya and Adrian backward onto the gravel. The sound was a deep, guttural roar that vibrated in their chest cavities. The heat was intense, searing their faces even from 4 stories up. Silence followed. The gunfire stopped. The shouting stopped. The only sound was the crackle of burning, manicured hedges and the distant groans of men who had the fight knocked out of them. Adrian was the first to move. He scrambled to the edge and looked down. The APC had been tipped onto its side by the force of the blast, its treads spinning uselessly in the air. The Irish soldiers were scattered across the lawn, dazed, their eyebrows singed, their weapons dropped in panic. Patrick O'Malley had been thrown into the decorative fountain in the center of the turning circle. He was splashing, trying to extinguish his smoldering suit jacket. You missed the tank, Adrian grinned, his face streaked with soot. But you hit the cloud. I was aiming for the cloud, Maya said, her voice shaking as the adrenaline crashed. Adrian stood up and offered her a hand. He pulled her to her feet, but he didn't let go. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead hard. We aren't done yet. We have to finish this. He walked to the roof maintenance box and pulled out a coil of climbing rope. He hooked it to the stone railing. We're going down, Maya asked. Kings don't shout from rooftops, Adrian said, tossing the rope over. They look their enemies in the eye. The rappel down was clumsy, but effective. When their boots hit the scorched grass, the smell of burnt ozone was overpowering. The Volkov guards, seeing the tide turn, spilled out of the front doors, weapons raised. They rounded up the dazed Irish mercenaries who were too shell-shocked to resist. Adrian and Maya walked past the wreckage of the APC, straight to the fountain. Patrick O'Malley was on his knees in the water, coughing. His face was red and blistered, his expensive hair singed off on one side. He looked up, squinting through swollen eyes, to see the two figures looming over him. Adrian looked pristine in comparison, despite the dust, and beside him, Maya Lin looked like an avenging angel in a torn cashmere sweater, still holding the gold gun. "Volkov," O'Malley wheezed, spitting out bloody water. You crazy Russian son of a bitch. You blew up your own estate." "Property can be rebuilt," Adrian said coldly. "Respect cannot." Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out the small black USB drive. He held it up, letting the firelight catch the ceramic casing. "Do you know what this is, Patrick?" O'Malley's eyes widened. "The architect's ledger. It contains everything," Adrian said. "Every bribe you paid to the city council, every judge you bought, every shipment of heroin you brought in through the docks. I have enough here to send you to federal prison for 3 consecutive life sentences. Or I can hand it to the Mexican cartels you've been ripping off for years." O'Malley shivered. The cartels would be far worse than prison. "What do you want?" O'Malley croaked. "Territory? The South Side? You want the docks?" "I don't want the docks," Adrian said. He took a step closer, his shadow falling over the defeated mob boss. "I want the knee." O'Malley froze. To bend the knee was to surrender total sovereignty. It meant the Irish mob would answer to the Bratva. It meant the end of the O'Malley independence. "I can't," O'Malley whispered. "My men won't stand for it." "Look at your men," Maya spoke up. Her voice was strong, carrying none of the fear she had felt an hour ago. O'Malley looked. His men were disarmed, kneeling on the grass, hands behind their heads, guarded by the Volkov soldiers. They were broken. "You have no men," Maya said. "You have no leverage, and you are sitting in a fountain while we are standing dry. Kiss the ring, or Adrian gives the drive to the FBI tonight." O'Malley looked at Maya. He looked at the gun in her hand. He realized, with a sinking feeling, that the Waitress was more dangerous than the Don. She had nothing to lose. Slowly, painfully, Patrick O'Malley climbed out of the fountain. He stood dripping wet, shivering in the cold wind. He looked at Adrian. He lowered his head. He dropped to one knee on the scorched asphalt. "The city is yours, Volkov," O'Malley whispered, the words tasting like ash. Adrian stared at him for a long moment, ensuring every surviving man on that lawn saw the submission. Then he turned to Maya. He took the gold revolver from her hand, engaging the safety and tucking it into his belt. Then he took her hand, interlacing their fingers, his grip warm and solid. "No," Adrian corrected, his voice ringing out across the silent estate. "The city is ours," as the sirens of the fire department finally began to wail in the distance. Too late to save the house, but just in time to witness the rise of a new empire. Maya looked at Adrian. She saw the bruise forming on his jaw. She saw the blood on his shirt. But mostly, she saw the way he looked at her, not as a liability, not as a pawn, but as a partner. "So," Maya said, a small, tired smile touching her lips, "is this a typical second date for you?" Adrian laughed, the sound genuine and deep. He pulled her into his arms, ignoring the ruins smoking around them. "Wait until you see the third," he promised. And as the first snowflakes of the winter began to fall, settling on the ashes of the battlefield, Adrian Volkov kissed the waitress who had burned down his world just to build him a new one. And that is how a simple waitress brought the entire Chicago underworld to its knees and stole the heart of the most dangerous man in the city. Maya Lin didn't just survive the fire. She became the flame. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, action, and romance, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. What would you have done if Adrian Volkov asked you that question? Would you have saved the gold or the dog? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next part of our saga. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.